Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Back at it with another video. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know it was a long weekend for some of us, but I'm back at it with a video. We're going to take a look at Mars entering the sign of Cancer, and obviously this is going to be a part 1 video. If you guys like my work, you like my videos, you want to support me, do me a favor and click the bell button down below. Subscribe to the channel. This will also let you know when I have new content out. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know, do you have Mars in Cancer? Do you have Mars in the 4th house? And what are you guys looking forward to the most when it comes to this very long period of having Mars in this sign? So I know some of you guys kind of look ahead a little bit and you already know that there is a Mars retrograde coming at the end of 2024. That retrograde will actually start in Leo, but it will retrograde back into Cancer. So we're actually going to see almost 6 months time of Mars in this particular sign. So bookmark this video. You're going to really want to come back to it and you're going to want to listen. I'm going to give you guys all the kind of important rundown dates of what to watch for, some of the themes of Mars in Cancer, and obviously the universe would not be having a retrograde here unless this is an area that we really needed to kind of work on or work out. And what's interesting is actually, you know, the Mercury retrograde that we saw was in Leo, started in Virgo, but it was in Leo. Now we see a Mars retrograde in Leo. So there's a kind of a lot under construction within these signs, you know, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo this year. And we're going to see, you know, like I said, this is part 1. So Mars is going to be first entering into the sign of Cancer on September 4th, and it will stay there until November 3rd, 2024. We will actually see the retrograde period where Mars goes into Leo, retrogrades back into Cancer. That won't be until January 6th through April 18th, 2025. So I'm actually planning on doing a Mars retrograde webinar. So I'm going to talk all about this probably in the next month or 2 if that's something you guys are interested in. But we will be seeing this retrograde take place from 6 degrees of Leo to 17 degrees of Cancer. So in this video, we're going to talk more about the first pass of Mars through the sign. Keep in mind that if you have any personal placements from 6 degrees of Leo through 17 degrees of Cancer, you will be impacted by this because the Mars retrograde will eventually go through this part of your chart. But Mars is a planet that rules Aries rising, Scorpio risings. So you guys are really going to be feeling this ingress in a very big way, as well as Cancer, Sun, Moon, and rising placements. Although I have a feeling it's actually going to be pretty good for you guys. I'm excited to see how this kind of helps rev up some of your guys' professional goals. And if you guys hang tight until the end of the video, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs and talk about where this ingress is taking place. I also talk about this on my my horoscopes for the month of August. So September. I talk about them in my horoscopes for September. So if you guys want to check those out, check them out, and you can get a little sneak peek as to where this is taking place for you. Now, September 4th through November 3rd, you know, we're gonna notice this pretty distinct Mars change. Mars moving into Cancer is very different than where it's been in Gemini, where there has been a lot going on. Mars was moving through a mutable air sign, which was a little bit more inquisitive, a little bit more chaotic. Got colorful there with some conjunctions to Jupiter and some squares taking place between Saturn and Neptune, where we felt a little stalled. So we're going to have a little bit more freedom, I think, with Mars in the sign of Cancer. This is a sign that, you know, is associated with the moon. Cancer is the 4th sign of the zodiac, and, you know, the moon is about moods, changes, right? Cycles. So we're going to find that some of our actions and some of the, you know, most active things that are kind of going on are very emotionally influenced for the better or for the worst. Mars obviously is a planet that deals with heat, right? This is about action, linear kind of goals, passion, drive, stamina. It can also be about conflict and war. So you throw the planet Mars into the house of the moon, and there's going to be a lot of emotional kind of conflict. There can be some domestic conflict. There can be lots of moves and home improvements and changes going on within our families or within our home countries. Now, this is important because also the North Node is currently in Aries, so we really want to pay attention to what's going on with Mars. It's going to show us where we're kind of taking some kind of action or kind of expressing ourselves in a more active kind of dynamic way to be able to receive some of the growth and the benefits of the North Node in Aries. So obviously, you know, Mars is moving through another cardinal sign, so it's going to be coming into square with the nodes, which is going to be a pretty pivotal turning point throughout this particular cycle. We will only see this one time. But if I can encapsulate this transit, I think of Mars in Cancer in a really simple phrase. I think it's emotions in action. And it's going to be kind of teaching us how to better tap into our emotions, how to use them as motivation to get to where we want to go, how to learn how to have better emotional boundaries, transmute, anger, right, or fear, because a lot of fear can be coming up in Cancer, of safety and security, and learning not to be combative emotionally. I think that's going to be also one of the lessons. Now, when Mars moves through this sign, one of the biggest themes that I find, both in people who have, natal Mars in Cancer, Mars in the 4th house, even if you've got Aries moons, that kind of stuff, we always see themes revolving around emotional security and protection. So in a general sense, Mars moving through this sign for the better part of the next 6 weeks will be heightening national or collective concerns revolving around security, focusing more on emotional and homeland security rather than, overt aggression. So we may find that there's going to be an increased focus on domestic policies, border control, national defense, from protective rather than an offensive standpoint. So we think of Cancer as the shell, right? It's the home that the crab kind of resides in, and it's its protective barrier. So it's not outwardly combative. It only kind of takes some kind of action or needs to kind of react if the home is being kind of disturbed. So I think that this is going to be interesting, especially as we start to see Mars coming into a trine with Saturn and Neptune. There will definitely be more talk about people feeling more emotionally kind of involved, revolving around fences, borders, boundaries, things revolving around immigration, but also around support of physical structures, homes, buildings, from water, right? So this could also be a time where a lot of people are doing kitchen renovations, bathroom renovations, pulling up floors, making big changes, kind of gutting homes. So that could be some other stuff that we see. Now with Mars moving into Cancer, this is also going to impact and affect the public mood and sensitivity for a number of reasons. I think one is, Mars being the ruler of the North Node is going to kind of give us a gauge on how our emotions are doing, or how we are exercising in a physical sense some sort of energy. So the fact that it's moving through the sign associated with the moon tells me that the public may become more sensitive, and there may be reactions to events that are more emotionally charged. This can lead to increased public demonstrations, movements that are driven by emotional or family values. And, you can't talk about Mars without talking about men or masculinity, because that's what it rules, even though it's in a feminine sign. It's expressing its energy in a feminine way now. But, Mars also has connections and associations with military, soldiers, military movements. It can also be connected to veterans affairs as we start to see Mars coming into a trine with Saturn, and where there is some kind of alliance between the young and the old coming together to be able to create new boundaries and protect home and families. And so we are seeing a little bit of this already happening right now, which is interesting. But I think we're also going to see more on the topic revolving around home security, and whether this is systems, or people are deciding that they want to get dogs because Cancer represents dogs to protect their home or spaces. It could also be revolving around self-protection and exercising of that. I'll just leave it at that. But I think that's possibly going to be kind of coming up here as well. Now, obviously, you know, Mars in Cancer is an energy that's about nurturing something, and that is your instinctual kind of like reaction, right? So there can be more of an emphasis on, you know, nurturing your communities, nurturing your kids, nurturing, you know, future generations of your particular, you know, country of origin. But it has a bit of a defensive edge to it, because whenever you have Mars in Cancer, it can be a little moody. So this can manifest as policies aimed at protecting vulnerable groups, or conversely, it can also be about defensive reactions or perceived threats. Now, Cancer is going to be more about your home, your property, your family. It's about mothers. It's about babies and children, you know, because Cancer is about that energy. We are also going to see some of the contacts that it's going to be making with Saturn and Neptune. And so it can be about hospital care, health care, mental health care, anything revolving around supporting the homeless and providing for people in need, especially as they're seeking some kind of shelter, or, you know, resources for mental health or substance abuse, you know, support. I think that will most likely be coming up as well. Now, Mars in this particular sign, it does not perform very well, unfortunately. So Mars is traditionally kind of most at its best when it's in, you know, Aries, Scorpio, or Capricorn. These are the signs that Mars like to be in. So when it's in Cancer, technically it's considered to be in its fall. So this means that Mars, you know, which is a planet of action and kind of passion and aggression, it's very direct, is finding its energy really difficult to be able to express itself when it's in the fallen sign ruled by the moon. So it has a difficulty kind of being aggressive because it's more emotional. It can't be really direct because the moon is constantly moving and it's fluctuating. And when I think of a crab, I think of a crab kind of going side to side, you know. We've all seen like that meme with the crab that's got like the knife, right? That's how I think of Mars in Cancer. Very don't poke the bear type energy, because if you do, you'd be very surprised with some of the kind of emotional reactions that can come from this particular transit. Now, there's pros and cons to all transits. I feel like we actually will see better aspect, at least for the most part, when Mars is moving through Cancer than when we saw it when it was going through Gemini or when it was going through Taurus, you know. So this is actually, I think it's going to be a lot easier than the previous signs. The pros for me with Mars moving through Cancer is definitely enhanced intuition, right? Cancer is associated with the moon, so it's about cycles, it's about our subconscious. It can also be about our gut feelings, our intuition. So I feel like we're acting on that when Mars is in Cancer. So there are decisions that might be more intuitive during this time, you know, potentially leading to innovative or empathic solutions in governance or public policy. People kind of feeling into, I feel like this is what's going to be best, you know, for our country, for our family, for our home, you know, for your emotions. So I think that that's going to be a positive, you know, transit. I like the fact that Mars in Cancer is a very protective energy, and there's a very strong drive with this placement to protect. And I think that this is kind of what we need right now, especially as we see Mars go into this sign. It's you know, taking orders from the North Node. So now we take action, North Node in Aries, when it comes to home, family, and emotions. That could also be where you're living. That could be your relationship to your physical space, your past, your heritage. It could be your roommates. It really depends on your situation. Obviously, we're going to have Cancer in different parts of our charts, but I like the fact that this is definitely going to be about really initiating a strong drive to take some kind of action. We're feeling emotionally driven to do this. Now, out in the world, it could lead to beneficial changes in social welfare or homeland security policies, which I feel like we could all agree could use a little work right now. So I think that might be an interesting turn of events as we start to see trines between Mars and Saturn, which could really kind of strengthen relationship between people and leadership, especially when it comes to immigration, borders, and security. Emotional depth is definitely a huge theme. You know, when we think of Mars, I think of, Aries kind of tendency to be bold and entrepreneurial. I think of Scorpio's energy of being able to transmute, transform, and change. So when we put Mars in the sign of Cancer, there's a lot of emotional depth because it is a water sign. So this transit can foster deeper emotional connections or understanding within our relationships to our families, our past, our communities, even our nation. And that's going to lead to movements, action, right? Mars is a planet that needs to kind of be moving. So it'll be more likely to take action if there is some kind of emotional movement. So if enough people kind of get behind some of the things that are taking place, they can become very moved and they can get involved and they can kind of join in with other people who are looking to kind of orchestrate some kind of change. Now for cons with this particular transit, definitely I find that Mars in Cancer can be a placement that can be a little bit passive aggressive. And so just in general terms over the next 6 weeks, and it's also going to be in shadow, guys. That's something else you want to think about. So we'll talk about that. But there can definitely be more, instead of direct kind of confrontation, there's more of a tendency to kind of be, seeing like a rise in passive aggressive tendencies, behaviors, and policies. And this can lead to some unresolved tension. So that's something we want to watch out for. Like I said, this is going to be a transit that is really responding to the moon. So where the moon is at various kind of times throughout the month, or if we're having new moons, full moons, eclipses, it's reverberating off of that Mars ingress. So there's definitely going to be more of a need to look at kind of the day-to-day lunar transits. Obviously mood swings, we see that, especially when I see like oppositions in Cancer and Capricorn. I definitely see lots of mood swingy type of themes. Or if I see, oppositions between the 10th house or the 4th house, right? So we're going to see that. We will actually wrap up the transit, at least the first part of the transit, with a Mars-Pluto opposition, which is going to be pretty gnarly. I'm not as optimistic about that part of the transit, but everything leading up to that actually is pretty productive. I feel like, mood swings. This could be public or political mood swings, which could make governance or decision-making very volatile. Pluto's back in Capricorn now, guys, for like the better part of the next 2 months. So as we start to see Mars, which is about movements and agitation or hostility or conflict or combativeness within home or property or like citizens, the opposition to Pluto is saying that, it's like we're reaching this boiling point where, the everyday people are kind of getting sick and tired of feeling threatened, overtaxed, certainly with Pluto and Capricorn, overly controlled, overly surveilled when it comes to, the actions that you're taking within and around your home. So that's definitely going to be a theme. And I think that there are some pretty stark contrasts between Pluto in Aquarius and Pluto in Capricorn. And I would not underestimate the next 2 months and the potential for us to see some potentially really, really significant overreach of abuses of power and some pretty draconian stuff that can be happening around the world, because this is the final degree of Capricorn. So it's representing the fact that, that the dark does not want to let go, does not want to lose control. And so we do see themes of crime, manipulation, corruption, and abuses of power that happen with these degrees. And so, I think people are going to get pretty pissed off about some of that stuff. And I think a lot of it's going to be connected, in my opinion, to the surveillance of everyday people within their homes. So I can only talk about that so much on YouTube, but I would just say go follow me on X at BTV Astro. I talk a lot about this stuff on my Twitter channel. But I think that's going to be a pretty big theme. And then obviously we can have issues revolving around loss of direction, which does happen when Mars is in its fall, because it can be so emotionally involved that it's not entirely sure where it's going. And so, there can be this more subdued kind of energy with Mars in Cancer, and it leads to procrastination sometimes or inaction in areas requiring an immediate response. However, I will say that the trine to Saturn will stabilize. The square to Chiron will show you that you need to get out of your own way. The trine to Neptune is where you're kind of listening to your intuition and really kind of showing up and rising to the occasion. And the opposition to Pluto is going to be where somebody's pressing your buttons and you're going to have to make a change. And the sextile to Uranus is going to be supporting that. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff kind of going on with this. So we'll have plenty of time to unpack it both in this video as well as the next one. Just know that when Mars is in this sign, some of the best things that you guys can do working with this transit is really practice emotional awareness. I think that's probably the most important thing. Recognizing and managing your emotional reactions, right? If we are leaning into the trines to Saturn, we can be better when it comes to our emotional boundaries and learning not to kind of fly off, you know, the handlebars, and learning not to take things personally or not to hold grudges or hold on to things for too long or overreact. So this is meant to be a period for emotional healing, and it's about addressing long-standing issues with empathy rather than aggression, especially with those trines to Saturn and Pisces. We've got these eclipses now in Pisces that are going to start rolling in. That's going to be emphasizing eventually that nodal change. So yeah, recognize and manage emotional reactions. This is also about strategic patience. So, you know, while Mars is in its direct motion, I do think that it's going to be more favorable. You know, I think that we don't really have the capabilities of always being able to take direct action when Mars is in Cancer. But we are being asked to really strategize and practice patience, and this could lead to more sustainable outcomes in the long term. So we're thinking before acting, especially in matters of security or defense. Now, there is always this theme of nurturing and protecting, like I said. So I feel like this is going to be about, you know, focusing on projects or policies that nurture and protect. This could be community development, environmental protection, family-oriented policies. I think of Cancer being associated not just with family, but communities, real estate, home, housing, like living, you know, quarters. So much of the Mars transit, I think, is supposed to be about incentivizing people to be like, yeah, you do want to stay in your country of origin. You should feel like you can, you know, buy a home, build a home, have a family, you know, own property, be independent in regards to your kind of home living situation. And so I think that's going to be kind of coming up here as well, that, you know, with trines to Saturn and Neptune, that perhaps there's some support that's actually paving the way and making that possible. I also think that this is going to definitely be about harnessing our intuition. So if you don't have a lot of water in your chart, or you don't have like a lot of placements in your 4th or 8th or 12th house, this can be a time where there's a lot of support that's kind of coming in from the cosmos to help kind of develop some of these internal, you know, intuitive kind of, I guess, capabilities. So we'll be trusting our intuition more, like I said, in the decision-making process. But this is especially going to be in areas where empathy and understanding can lead to better outcomes. And then obviously, you know, trying our best to avoid being over defensive. That's something else that we can kind of see with Mars in Cancer. So, you know, while protection is a theme, you know, we want to avoid becoming overly defensive or, you know, kind of being too, combative with other people because we feel maybe emotionally threatened. This is about balancing protection with openness to ensure growth and progress for everybody involved. Now, because this energy is going to be in the shadow, okay, keep in mind that you're only going to have until a certain period of time to do certain things, and I'll give you those dates. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be working on it pretty much during the retrograde, the first kind of 4 months of 2025. Now, themes that I see, like what do people do physically, because Mars is about action when Mars is in Cancer. Definitely a lot of like home renovations or decorating. I see a lot of people that will completely like, you know, demo a home and then build something new, or like gut out their kitchens. Cancer can be the kitchen. Or anywhere where there's water or there's cooking or, you know, sometimes even like bathrooms, stuff like that. Fountains, pools, things of that nature. Foundations of home as well. I can see that being a theme. So if you're planning on doing home renovations or decorations, you know, you might be using this time to make your living space more comforting and secure. This could also mean you're painting, rearranging furniture, adding personal touches that can enhance your sense of home. So taking action when it comes to home and domestic stuff. And you guys have probably heard me say at some point when you listen to your monthly horoscope, if you've had Mars go through your 4th house, I always tell you guys, have something to work on. Have a to-do list, have some kind of do-it-yourself projects, or finally, tackle maybe fixing something up or renovating something that you've been putting off. Because Mars, when it goes through Cancer, or kind of like the 4th house, there's this feeling of that house being under attack, right? And it's not always going to be like physical attacks when it's in Cancer sometimes, but I think it's just more the emotional pressure that's kind of coming up, and the actions that we're taking revolving around our home and how it's making us feel. So yeah, if you've been wanting to do some renovations or decorations, that's a good time. I think gardening is also another theme, especially because we will see like Mars make some trines to Saturn, and also some sextiles to Uranus and Taurus. So cultivating a garden, even indoor plants, can be very therapeutic, because this is about nurturing and patience. And so I think that it requires these kind of skills if you're going to kind of participate in planting a garden or taking care of plants. And it's about connecting with the earth and aligning with Cancer's themes, especially with some of the trines to Saturn. So I know in some parts of the world right now, the weather is changing. You might be going into a season where you're not going to have as many crops. You're going into a season where you're ready to kind of put your crops out. But it could be something as simple as, having like a window kind of herbal garden, or maybe you're deciding that you're wanting to learn more how to work with like the seasonal changes. Maybe you're strategizing and planning what you're going to be building for next spring. Some people are going to be taking much more action when it comes to being self-sufficient at home. Remember, Aries is kind of the entrepreneur, the trailblazer. And, when we have Mars in Cancer, it means people are going to start being like, okay, I, want to start raising animals at home, or I want to live in a more rural area, or I want to be more independent, or be able to kind of live more, off grid. And, I want to build my own home, or I'm going to, lay our own foundation, or I'm doing our own flooring. These kinds of things might start kind of happening, and people are learning how to be a little bit more handy with some of the stuff that they're doing. I love Mars in Cancer for cooking and baking, because, Cancer is associated with food and nourishment. Not in the same way Taurus is, where it's more that's pleasure. Cancer is saying, well, we have to feed the kids. We have to take care of, our pets and feed them. We have to make sure that, the farm animals are, have their hay or their feed or whatever, or they have to be baking or cooking. And Cancer does have some connections and associations also with like bread. So, focus on cooking meals that are comforting and nourishing. There could be family traditions or new dishes that bring warmth and satisfaction up for you now. Mars is heat, right? Cancer is kind of doing stuff at home. So some of you guys might be kind of working on your cooking skills, or maybe you're learning how to, return back to some of the recipes maybe that you had from your moms or your grandmothers or your great-grandmothers, and learning how to be a little bit more self-sufficient and independent, or kind of just getting back to things that could be a little bit more natural. Obviously, do-it-yourself projects are great because of that connection with Mars. So if you have do-it-yourself projects that will improve your living environment, like I said, anything from small repairs to just making your house feel a little bit more cozy, I recommend. And just creating more of a home sanctuary. I think that that's a great time to be more focused on dedicating time to finding a space that can be about relaxation or meditation. This could be setting up like a reading nook maybe for some of you guys, or a meditation corner, or maybe a spare bedroom that you're converting to be able to do like yoga, especially with all those trines that we're going to see to Mars and Neptune. That's a wonderful way to be able to utilize this energy. Now, Mars is an active sign, right? As is the North Node in Aries. So some things that can be helpful for you to kind of manage maybe the moodiness or the moods that can kind of come up during this particular transit is having an outlet. So yoga or Tai Chi, I would really recommend because these practices are very gentle, but they're very effective in kind of having that balance between, the inner and the outer world, and also promoting well-being and kind of emotional kind of balance. And I think it really resonates with Cancer's energy. Swimming, right? Saunas, soaking, water, and more water. So water activities are very beneficial with this transit. Swimming can both be a physical workout and also a way to relax and rejuvenate. If you have a lap pool, great. If you have a community pool, go. If you want to get a hot tub, if you want to, start going regularly to a day spa. These things are all really wonderful. I think of, Aries and that connection to Mars is being muscle and things that are defined. So it may kind of suggest that we're trying to do more kind of like muscle development or like strength development in water. So like I think water aerobics, or maybe like wearing weights and being in a pool, or if you guys have all seen like the dogs or the animals that are like recovering from injuries and they put them on the treadmill in water and resistance, right? And being able to kind of tone and define definitely kind of comes up with this transit. Competitive swimming I see a lot with either Mars in a water sign or Mars trine Saturn. And we're going to see some of those aspects as well. So it can definitely be a time where you can get more involved in those things if you'd like. Dance especially, I think of Mars being a sign that is about action, and it also can be about beat and percussion and drumming. And Cancer rules the chest, the brain, and also the belly. So belly dancing would actually be really good during this transit. Belly dancing or any dance that's more intuitive or kind of ecstatic or free-flowing. It can be a great way to express emotions physically. Maybe even like interpretive dance, because you are going to see some like Mars trine Neptune type of stuff. So that could be another option to kind of move through emotions and stay active. Walking, light hiking, home workouts, like these things are great as well. Capricorn is more about hiking in an incline. And I think of maybe counterbalancing some of that weakened Mars in Cancer would be good to do some hiking. Mars is going to trine Saturn, so something where you're going to have an upward incline, outside or on a treadmill, and you're really focusing on being able to kind of get to a point where you can have like a vantage point. But connecting with nature is wonderful whenever you have placements in earth and water signs. So it doesn't have to be too strenuous, just something where you can connect with nature and it's soothing and it's grounding. But home workouts is very Mars in Cancer. So this is about considering workouts you can do at home. What can you do? Do you need to go buck wild and buy a home gym? No. It could be, you're getting a workout just like, picking your kids up and down, regularly, or maybe you're buying some weights for, a home office that you're going to kind of do a couple of times a week, or maybe you decide that you've got a spare bedroom you're wanting to turn into, your own Pilates studio, or something that is going to be giving you the safety and the security of being able to focus on getting fit or feeling strong at home. And it doesn't have to be physical. It could also be mental and emotional as well. So like I said, those kind of Zen dens, meditation corners, that kind of stuff. What's down below is the fourth house as well. So I could see some people being like, well, we are going to be turning our basement into what's going to be, like a small kind of like, apartment or whatever for our kids that are moving back in. Or we're going to be, putting it on Airbnb and trying to make money out of it. I could see some people who are going to be turning, those closets under the stairs into like a meditation room. There's going to be some stuff that is going to be about what's under the ground. And this is also about roots, by the way. Both the roots of our ancestors, but also the roots that are kind of connected to the country which we reside in. So there's going to be karmic stuff that's going to come up when Mars goes through its retrograde, because it's going to be about digging up the past. So just some ideas. And I would also say, to really enhance some of this transit, you guys may want to consider just spending more time with your family or your partners at home, appreciating your home more, trying to create a peaceful space. Ancestral research is also really interesting during this time. So you might be delving into genealogy or family history. And it can be both like mentally and emotionally a journey in connecting with your roots, but I think this could be a fun time to do that. I also like art therapy. I think this could be wonderful during this transit, especially with some of the trines to Saturn and Neptune. And just really, taking a look around our home space and trying to figure out what we need to kind of update and fix and where things could be a little bit better or more so secure. So I think of like, you know, do locks need to be updated or changed? Does there need to be a family emergency plan that you create in the off chance that there is an emergency, or God forbid there is, you know, a natural disaster? You know, do you and your family know what the plan is? Do you have what you need in your home? Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have security for your space? Do you have food for your pets? These are actions that you can be taking, especially with some of the aspects to Saturn and Neptune, where you can be better prepared and be, you know, emotionally kind of preparing yourself for some of that stuff. So that way, in the off chance some of these things happen, you're set and you're not going to be, you know, as worried as other people. All right, so here's what I've got for you guys. Consider hosting gatherings at home, you know, action revolving around kind of like family get-togethers. It could be also having like family reunions. You know, that's something else you can consider doing, because we're focusing on creating like a warm, welcoming atmosphere at home with family. You could be volunteering, you know, looking for opportunities where you can help other people. Maybe you consider knitting for charity. You could also be cooking or donating food to your local food bank, or participating in online emotional support groups. And also like sharing your emotions more freely and really paying attention to your emotions and what they're trying to tell you, because it's going to be leading you into a direction where it's going to most likely protect you if you're listening and you're paying attention. All right, so let's take a look at Mars's trek. Obviously, you guys are watching about a day before this particular transit happens. So we're in kind of the final moments of the Mars square Neptune, which honestly has been kind of like weird. It's been very draining. I don't know if you guys have felt that, but I have kind of felt like I've been in like a fishbowl the last couple of days. Really hard to focus and get clarity and kind of get things done with this mutable square. So looking at, you know, Mars's ingress into Cancer is an interesting one, because we're going to see this on the 4th of September. And, you know, 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is known as the world axis points. So sometimes things happen when we have planets on these degrees. Mars ingresses into Cancer, and remember, it's ruled by the moon. The moon is immediately squaring the Mars ingress. So right off the bat, we see pressure between our need to emotionally kind of connect and relate to other people, Libra, and we've got the ruler Venus on the south node. So there is a lot of emotions coming up about, you know, not feeling loved, not getting the attention or the affection that we need, not feeling as connected in certain relationships, feeling some distance, maybe disappointment when it comes to, you know, partners and just other people that we're supposed to be kind of connecting and collaborating with in some capacity. So this square is emphasizing that, because it is very much kind of connected to what's happening with the moon's south node Venus. So there could be right off the bat changes and fluctuations going on with relationships, which then brings up some domestic kind of disharmony issues. Now, it won't materialize that for everyone, but the fact that this is happening at 0 degrees makes me go, whoa, that's an interesting ingress chart. And keep in mind, you know, in the last moments that we have had Mars in Gemini, it's been not only square to Neptune, where we have been like, what's the point? I'm throwing in the towel, so exhausted. I don't know the way forward. You know, like it doesn't make sense. I'm not really seeing very clearly. And simultaneously, it has been quincunx Pluto, where it has felt like there is this kind of not so obvious power struggle that's going on, where we feel like something has a hold of our minds, and we could be finding ourselves stuck in negative thought patterning, or we're kind of like mentally feeling blocked or feeling challenged, like we're under Pluto's thumb. So it has not been an easy place to have Mars the last couple of days. So, you know, this energy, I think really, if you work with it appropriately, we can actually create a lot of change in the Cancer area of our chart. So this will be the ingress. We're not going to see too much until we get closer to the 11th. And on the 11th, we're going to see some sextiles that are kind of going down between Mars and Mercury. So Mercury will hit 4 degrees Mars is at 4 degrees, and 4 degrees is a Cancer degree. So if Cancer is the home, if Mars is taking action, if Mercury is the mind, and it's also about organization, communication, health, and, you know, planning or kind of, you know, productivity, my goodness, is September 11th a really great day to like sit down and go, okay, it's September. What's the plan for the next 3 months? Where are we having the holidays? You know, what do we need to focus on in terms of parents? What do we need to organize in the home? What do we need to kind of get done so that way, you know, by the time we start the new year, the house is complete, or things are better organized, or we do now have a more ideal system when it comes to organizing our home spaces, making sure that our family has what, you know, healthcare they need, or what medications they need. Really great aspect. I would use this, guys. I would use this because you are going to be seeing all these planets that have been in opposition to Saturn, where we have felt like there has been a delay or there isn't clarity about health matters. And then we're going to start seeing these eclipses come in Pisces and Virgo. And I can just tell you guys, if you have not already seen my webinar on the eclipses, you really should, because there's lots of stuff in there I can't talk about on YouTube. So it's a private link. So if you guys want to see that, I recommend getting it. You can check out the link in this video. I will do a video on the eclipses. You guys are actually going to get that on Thursday, but I'm not going to be able to talk about everything. So it's really important that we start taking this time, I think, with like the sextiles between Cancer and Virgo, to be like, okay, what do we need in the house? You know, do we have a first aid kit? Check. All right, cool. So, you know, God forbid something happens, you know, whose house are we going to? Do we make sure that the dog and the cat have enough food? You know, do we have, you know, stockpiled medication for stuff? And I know some of you guys are going to think this is crazy, but you will start to see why I'm telling you these things when these eclipses start happening. Many of you guys have been watching my channel for years, and you guys know that I'll tell you stuff 6 months before it happens. These eclipses that are coming up in Pisces and Virgo are going to be about major shortages of medication, major issues with healthcare not being able to provide, major problems, especially revolving around import and export, because most of our medications here in the United States, we don't get it from the United States. We're getting it from other countries. So think about that, and think about what natural remedies and solutions you can be utilizing. And so much of the North Node in Pisces is going to be about taking care of our immune systems, getting adequate rest, not stressing and worrying about things, not giving into fear. And these are things that we can start actually tackling now with Mars in some appropriate angles. So you'll see that transit happen on the 11th. Now, the 15th is the day you're going to want to watch, not only because we're going to see this aspect that I'm going to show you, but we're also coming into the eclipse energy, okay? But this is that transit that I spoke about in my September video, where I told you guys that when planets square the nodes, it's a moment in time where you have free will, okay? Some astrologers believe in free will, some don't. I believe in free will. I feel like while the chart's going to tell you what's likely to happen, at the end of the day, you can make decisions and go completely against the chart and go, I defy you, stars. You know, I'm not doing that. This is one of those moments where I would actually initiate something because the North and South Node are actually connected to the moon. And if we look at the moon this day, it's an Aquarius, which is about the future. It is about goals, celebrations, parties, gatherings, networks. It's trine Venus. It's trine Jupiter. Wow, what a beautiful day. And we've also got this sun that's starting to come into a trine with Uranus as well. So on this day, Mars, which is the dispositor is the moon, is squaring the North and the South Node. Now, I studied evolutionary astrology. It's my first love. If you guys don't know anything about that, go and find yourself a good evolutionary astrologer. Go and start with learning a little bit about Jeffrey Wolf Green. He's one of my favorites. But this means that we have to basically initiate, we have to integrate the energy of Mars. And we have to look at the Cancer area of our chart. We have to go, okay, I have to start something here, right? I have to lean into this more emotionally here, or there may be an emotional reaction that comes up, or something that happens this day that makes you go, I feel very passionate about this thing, I'm going to do it. And Cancer initiates. It takes a lot of emotions that push Cancer to the brink of finally, you know, moving to a bigger shell, right? Finally doing something. And then we've got this eclipse energy that's also brewing, will be kind of building coming into the eclipse in Pisces, which will then be on the 17th. Such a beautiful day. I know I have read to you guys the Sabian symbol, but I will read it again for 7 degrees of Cancer. 2 fairies on a moonlit night. The theme is unifying magic. The symbol speaks to transformation, lightness of the heart, and the need for every individual to take a break and do something restful, relaxing when functioning under the stress or strain. The image of 2 fairies in a moonlit night alludes to the healing power of nature and the hidden unifying magic behind all things. The emphasis here is on imagination as a springboard to self-realization, on a quiet reflection as the path to understanding and inner peace. On a practical level, this symbol may indicate granting of a wish. At its highest, the symbol represents intuitive awareness of what needs to be done in order to maintain proper balance and restore the situation to wholeness. Watch for a refusal to deal with reality and escape through fantasy or denial. The accent is on magic. Release from pressure and stress. What healing of some situation or condition brings welcome relief. Romance is in the air. Your greatest advantage lies in using your creativity and imagination and following your intuition. Believe in miracles. Guard against refusing to look at a situation for what it really is, or telling yourself it will go away if you just refuse to recognize it. Don't let someone pull the wool over your eyes by telling you what you want to hear. Stepping stones is imagination, magic, fantasy, illusion, romance, wishes, dreams, vision, escape, transcendence, inspiration. So something's going to come up. And I mean, the sign of wishes would be Aquarius, by the way, right? This is where we like blow out the birthday candles on our cake. So to see the moon trine Venus and also Jupiter makes me feel like there's something that we're going to realize like, wow, this is what I really want. And then Mars square the nodes is going to be like, okay, do it, you know, go after it. And it will not retrograde back to this point, by the way. So the retrograde is only going to be to about 17 degrees. All right, so then we are going to see on the 29th of September. So we got to go down a little bit down the month. There we go. This is the first Mars trine Saturn we're going to see. And this is a great aspect. It's a really great aspect because it's at a Taurus degree. So this is going to be like if you are buying the property, the new furniture for the home, if you're putting the down payment on something, there is something solid to this, right? So Mars in Cancer taking action emotionally, especially when it comes to, you know, maybe our home, our resources, our values, our stability, is trining Saturn. This is about good investments, emotionally good investments of time, where actions and our emotional motivations are in alignment with Saturn, which is saying, yes, this will be something that will last a while. There is some kind of system, there is some process, there is some container that can kind of hold all of this energy and all of this work. Now at this point, we're getting ready to come into the solar eclipse in Libra. That'll be around the 2nd of October, so we're starting to feel that energy. And once again, when this trine happens, we're looking at where's the moon? Well, the moon's coming into opposition with Saturn. And we know that when the moon goes through Virgo and it's opposing Saturn and Neptune, at least in my experience, I've been like, no, I have to do this thing, right? I have to be more practical, logical. I need to be, you know, working on this thing and being a little bit more clear with my productivity. And it's hard because the opposition to Saturn means that we have to maybe put the phone down, or we have to make sure that we're paying attention, or we're not just spacing out watching TV, or, you know, we're not self-sabotaging. So something about this trine is saying we have to be so emotionally dedicated and motivated by what we're doing in the Cancer area of our life. And we need to be kind of following a system or a timeline or a plan, that's the only way that it's going to work, right? So this is the first trine. You'll see another trine that's going to be in the next video as a part of the retrograde, because it will retrograde and trine Saturn actually, I think like another 2 times. And then we're going to see on the 4th, Mars enters shadow. Okay, so I'm going to keep saying this over and over and over and over and over again. some people, and I go both ways, some people like to go, okay, I want to know what day the shadow happens so I can get my stuff done before the shadow, right? Because once the shadow happens, similar to a Mercury retrograde, guys, you start feeling the effects of, oh, my phone call is dropping out, or I'm having issues with my computer, or like I'm having a delay with like this contract. So if Mars rules action, motivation, you know, passion, and it's already in its fall in Cancer, where, you know, it's got its good days and its bad days, I think, are going to find that things are actually going to start to slow down, because you're only going to see some challenging aspects from Mars from October 5th forward. We've got a square to Chiron, we've got an opposition to Pluto, we've got a trine to Neptune, which is going to be about releasing and cutting our losses and letting some things go. So if you know that in the Cancer area of your life, you want to get something launched, you want to have something finalized, you know, whatever, know that once you get to about October 5th, then you're kind of flirting with being in the shadow, and you may have to go back basically at the beginning of 2025, and you may have to work through things, right? What's interesting is that when this happens, number one, it's coming into shadow at 17 degrees, which is a Leo degree, which is going to be about leaders of countries, which we're gonna see some pretty big plot twists, guys, that are going to be coming with this, because the Mars retrograde is going to be going right over some of the natal placements in the United States chart. It's going to be going right over some significant placements in Trump's chart. Same thing for RFK Jr. It's going to go right over his ascendant. There's going to be some crazy stuff happening. So I'm kind of curious to see how this materializes. But just know that 17 degrees is the heart of the matter. It's about children. It's about romance. It's about creativity. I could quite literally see a lot of people going like, I don't want to raise my kids in this city or in this country. We're leaving. You know, we are packing up our house. We're going somewhere else. I could also see some people being like, you know, we are moving back in with our parents, or we're moving back in with our family, or my kid's moving back home after college, or, you know, some kind of action going on at home revolving around children. Now, some people might say we're starting new creative hobbies at home. We're starting an at-home business. There may be some changes going on revolving around the real estate you know, business. And this could be everything from real estate investors to people who are flipping, to people who work and own Airbnbs, to people who do some kind of home care, to people who do renovations, to people who do staging. There is a huge real estate slowdown coming. Huge. I'm pretty confident about that with some of the aspects that I've seen. And we'll talk about that, but there is something coming that is going to be some kind of reflection of what's going on with the opposition to Pluto and the square to Chiron. And it could mean that there is a pretty dramatic downturn in the market. When planets retrograde, right, they slow down. So if Mars is about productivity and things like that, we may see that, you know, suddenly housing prices plunge, and then the impact that that has on companies that are developers, or companies that supply, you know, things revolving around home development. Home Depot, right? Lowe's, some of these big real estate, you know, investment firms, things like that. We'll see some changes there. I do think it will bounce back though, you know, because what we are going to see is towards the second half of 2025, we will see Jupiter in Cancer, and it will trine Saturn. So I think we are going to see maybe home prices come back. Maybe people are building again. They're buying again. You know, so there may be stocks and investments and things that happen because there's dips that could actually be undervalued, that you could scoop up and you could hold on to, and they may actually be very valuable the second half of next year. Just a fun tip. Anyway, so we're going to see that the shadow is going to kind of hit on the 5th. Then this is going to take us to the other transit that's taking place as well. And you're going to see this kind of taking place closer to the 6th. But Mercury is then going to start coming into a square. Very close together. I'm splitting hairs here. Mercury is the faster moving planet, so it's the one who's actually making the aspect. But notice we have Mercury in Libra, so wanting to talk about relationships, wanting to talk to other people. What are we doing? What's going on with us? Are we okay? Remember, we had just come out of an eclipse in Libra, and it's now squaring Mars. So now, Mercury's no longer in its superior position. It's within 4 degrees of the sun. So it's burnt up to all hell. We've got the ruler of Venus in its fall in Scorpio. And it's not entirely happy there. It can be a little intense. And this is all squaring Mars. So there's going to be lots of changes going on in relationships. And this could be marriages, this could be partnerships, based off of where people are living or what they're experiencing at home, or things that could be changing on the home front, which can be impacting relationships, or relationships are changing. So people are moving in, they're moving out, they're selling houses. And another one, it is 17. Drama is associated with 17. So we might see some drama revolving around these things. All right. So then the next aspect that I wanted to look at is going to be the 8th of October. And this is when Venus will be in a trine to Mars, which is a good aspect. Granted, we're going to see it at 18 degrees. And trines are free-flowing energies. So for good or for bad, they flow. Mars rules the north node. Venus rules the south node. We've got Mars that obviously is in an emotional sign. It's trining Venus in Scorpio, which is really passionate, intense. I feel like this is going to be about uncovering or working through maybe issues in relationships where there's been some secrets, there's been some financial issues, there's been some challenges revolving around vulnerability. But when we see Mars and Venus in harmony with one another, generally relationships can flow a little bit better. Keep in mind, guys, these are water trines, okay? So we don't always see some of the physical things that happen when you see earth trines. We don't always see some of the information things happen with air trines. Water trines is like something comes up, you have a conversation, you're emotional about it, there's some kind of shift, and then there could be some healing involved, right? So Venus in Scorpio is deep, passionate, very committed, devoted, but also sometimes afraid of change in relationships, or afraid of vulnerability with financial matters. And it's moving through a sexual sign. And so with the trine to Mars, which is the dispositor for Venus, it's basically saying, yeah, I'm scared to change our home too, or, refinance our mortgage, or I'm, scared to make this big life change as well. So they're kind of speaking the same language. Okay, so that's actually beneficial for changes in relationships, finances, money, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to see on the 13th, this is going to be when the sun in Libra squares Mars. Okay, so here we go. This will actually be at a 20, which is a Scorpio degree. So it was kind of mirroring what I was just saying about fear of change. And whenever we have squares between Libra and Cancer, we call this an opening square because it's squaring on the right-hand side. So if we think about when the sun and Mars came into conjunction, right, that what was seated there, I can show it to you in a second. Now it's evolving into the first outer challenge, the first speed bump, the stop sign of, from when we had that seated Mars conjunction, now we're facing a challenge. And the challenge seems to be about what we're doing together, right, Libra, as a partner, as a collaboration, as a support system. And what that is going to cause or create, what kind of domestic disturbance, what kind of heated emotions, what kind of changes within the home, within the family, what kind of moves, what kind of, things are being thrown around in the kitchen. I could totally see Mars in Cancer as like, just people yelling with a knife in their hand and just shaking their fist at, their partner about something that they're like not happy about. Obviously, I'm not encouraging violence. I'm just saying that that's how I see the energy, right? And then you take it a step further, being that it's at a 20 degree, it's about the changes that are having to happen in relationships to better facilitate the direction of where we're going with home. And so sometimes, with some of these squares, especially Libra, the 7th house, it's about airing things out and being like, let's just get it out in the open. If this isn't working, this isn't working. Let's just be done with it. And I think some people are going to have that mentality. And I'm not saying you should. It's going to depend on your situation. But some people may have that mentality because we're seeing South Node eclipses in Libra. And we're recognizing that sometimes staying together for the sake of staying together isn't necessarily what's best for the individual. And so remember, the North Node is in Aries. It's about individuals. So look at Mercury, 29 degrees square Pluto. So there's definitely going to be some heated exchanged words. If you guys remember when we start the fall equinox, when we look at that chart, when the sun first ingresses into Libra, we have squares between Venus at 29 degrees and Pluto at 29 degrees. This represents a recentering, rebalancing of the scales. I always say Libra will trade truth for peace. Scorpio will not. They will say, fuck that. They're like, we need truth, even if it disrupts the peace. And so I always think of that when I see a planet that's just getting ready to leave that 29 degree of Libra into Scorpio's realm, and it squares Pluto, because it's setting up the tension, basically the conflict, the disruption. This is a superior square. So unlike we're down here, we see Mars squaring the sun and we're like, oh man, you know, this is about like problems in relationships. When Libra is squaring Capricorn or Pluto, this is a superior square. It's squaring it from the right-hand side. It has a higher vantage point. It's now charging or attacking Pluto. And this is actually saying through unification, through support, through strong alliances, diplomacy, law, order, balance, we can overcome some of these really long-standing issues. So the irony that there may be an argument that takes place around mid-October that needs to come up to kind of clear the air, to make us realize that we need to kind of get on the same team or on the same page. And yes, it's going to require us to change and transform in some way, our home, our families, our emotions, our goals, our country even. So that's going to be a day to watch, because there's a lot of stuff kind of going on there. And Venus is opposing Uranus. Right, so it's prepped and primed for a lot of the things that I have foreseen kind of coming. What else? We will also see on this day, Mars will square Chiron. So look at that. Mars becomes the focal point of a square between the sun and also Chiron. Chiron, the wounded healer, sun in Libra, you know, kind of shining a light on relationships, and where, you know, sometimes where there is too much sacrifice or giving in to other people or doing what the other person wants to do, it creates a situation where we have these kind of pent up emotions and feelings that are coming up, and you know, they may kind of come up to the surface, you know, that we're not really aware. It could be more subconsciously, and then it turns into some like passive aggressive situation, and a situation that shouldn't be a big deal can kind of really be blown out of proportion in a pretty big way. I think Mars square Chiron is like where, you know, the action that we need to make change, or we need to initiate something, we need to, because we feel like we need something new in an independent level. And then the square to the sun is saying that it's going to really put the pressure on relationships and relationship evolution. A lot of stuff going on there to unpack. Certainly the signs ruled by Mars, so, you know, Aries and Scorpio and Cancer, you guys are really going to feel it. But the cardinal signs are really going to feel this, especially with Pluto back in Capricorn. Cardinal signs are really going to feel this as well. All right, so we've got now on the 24th, so we get a little bit of a break here. This is where we see Mars sextile Uranus. Right, so where we're taking action, we're feeling motivated, we're listening to our emotions. We can make pivots, we can make sudden changes and shifts, right? Uranus is at 26, that's a Taurus degree. Changes, unexpected changes with the markets. You know, as you guys are watching this now, Uranus and Pluto are retrograde. So with Uranus retrograde, that means that we can see some things kind of sporadically break down, or we can see more kind of sudden changes with financial systems. So this at 26 is literally about banks, banking, resources, things revolving around solid structures. The sextile to Mars could mean some people are suddenly going, I'm selling my house, I'm buying a house, I'm building a house, you know, very quickly. And this is about fluctuations going on with land. So this could also mean natural disasters, flooding, earthquakes, right? Storms, and how that can come in and create destruction, right? Pluto Mars is destruction. So with Mars being in Cancer, it could mean that, you know, you have one really bad earthquake, it creates a fire, it takes out a whole, you know, community. Obviously touch wood, but Mars is also fire. So this is starting now to oppose Pluto, which is about destruction, right? And Mars is trine Neptune, which is about water. So we've got a sextile here, an opposition. There's some definite, you know, when I think about the planets in transit, I think about as above, so below. That if the stars are starting to kind of indicate that there is going to be some intensity, some heat, some pressure, some emotional kind of boiling point that's going to be happening within our homes, and that it's coming from outside sources, Pluto of power and control, and it's also being influenced by Neptune, which is kind of behind the scenes, very secretive. We don't really see it happening. It could be coming from TV and film and movies, and kind of propaganda stuff is very Neptune. And also, this could be talking about illnesses, viruses, and illness is also kind of connected to Mars. Mars is more about fever. It can be more about illness, and it could be about things that happen very quickly. Pluto is going to be talking more about what's happening with deathly or deadly or kind of secret or kind of, subliminal things happening. And then Neptune would be things that would kind of creep in that we don't see, or stuff that could be more virus-related things kind of connecting to water. Guys, I'm kind of getting the impression there's going to be like attacks involving water. Now, this could be Navy-related. This could be coastal cities. This could be storm manipulation, if you believe in that, and how that's being used intentionally to be able to disrupt certain places and locations and displace certain populations. And create enough chaos and havoc that it would start to kind of distract from Pluto at 29 degrees, where it's going to want to do where it's going to want to do. It's going to want to stay in control. It wants to manipulate and control time, right? Capricorn. So on the 24th, Mars sextile Uranus, I think we might really see a sudden kind of shift and change revolving around people being like, I'm leaving this community. We are moving. Or, we're getting out of town. We're not staying here. Why? Because Uranus in Taurus is dangerous. It's explosive. It represents an energy where there can be chaos. Especially Uranus in Taurus is like mobs, angry mobs, crowds, and people being like, yeah, we're leaving. We're not staying here. And then obviously Mars in Cancer is about defending or protecting your space. And whether that's your physical home, if that's your family, if that's your country, right? And the opposition to Pluto is not backing down. I see Mars, Pluto in opposition to each other is the same as a conjunction, just really, really intensified power. And it's interesting that both Mars and Pluto are associated with Scorpio. And so when we look at what's going on, when we're starting to kind of see the Mars-Pluto opposition happening, it's happening right on the heels of the Sun square Pluto, right? So it's been saying, okay, now there are changes that are kind of coming through relationships and allies and things, and like we are starting to kind of clear things up. Anyway, so that will be the square that you're going to be seeing, followed by then the sextile between Mars and Uranus, where we can make sudden, pivots and change. And then on the 27th, you're going to see Mars trine Neptune, which, not a bad transit. Mars trine Neptune is about more where we're kind of feeling intuitively inspired before we take any action. This is kind of very spiritual warrior-esque. It's kind of like, I will, do what I need to do, make the sacrifice, show up, do what needs to be done. And Cancer is a very patriotic sign, by the way, because it is about national pride. So I could see this being about some people being like, I'm willing to stay and make a sacrifice and help other people. God forbid there are storms or there are some really crazy, chaotic things happening in October. Some people will say, no, I'm going to stay. I'm not just going to run. I'm going to stay and help people. And it's about being compassionate and understanding and being willing to kind of help those who are in need, right? Now, then right after that trine, which is in a Gemini degree, so it's more about communication. And I also feel like it's going to be about people who are communicating in a way that is going to be a lot more understanding and, kind of considerate, right? Then we start to see Mars opposed Pluto. I work with about a 3-degree orb, so I kind of feel like the Mars trine Neptune gets snaked a little bit because we're starting to feel the opposition to Pluto where something's under our thumb. And oppositions are relational, so you've got two planets standing on each side of the room and they're crossing their hands and they don't want to meet in the middle, right? So it wants them to meet in the middle. So the middle signs between Capricorn, which is about work, authority, long-term standing kind of situations, leadership, government, Cancer, home, family, values, privacy, protection, mother, security. The middle ground would be Aries, which is the individual, and Libra, which is the partnership. And essentially, there's so much tension between these two that it's making it very difficult for there to be togetherness, support, and collaboration or unification in relationships. And it's really kicking into overdrive this Aries North Node Chiron, which is like individuals who are like, I'm sick of being alone, or I don't want to have to do this on my own, or, you know, I have to go my own way, or I have to heal myself. So it's definitely bringing up a lot of like job and home related issues for people, I think in a very big way. And where that can cause a lot of strife in certain relationships, but can also bring the right people together depending on how you look at it. By the time we get to this period at the end of October, while Mars is in opposition to Pluto, it is dangerous. This is a dangerous aspect. Pluto is about death. It is about pain. It is about violence. It is about corruption. And this is at 29 degrees. So it can be about, you know, leaders being exposed for that. It can be about people challenging some kind of power, grip of power, control, agenda. It can also be about people feeling the need to protect, you know, 29 degrees, children, younger people, you know, their own businesses, their own happiness, their own joy. I've talked a lot about how this 29 degrees has come up so much, and that it's really been about, especially in the Mercury retrograde, we saw Mercury retrograde at 29 of Leo, quincunx Pluto, and we saw so many people come out and say this isn't right. Now when we see Mars, it's going to be the people. It's not going to be, oh, you know, every week or so we see some really brave politicians stand up and do something. This is going to be very different. You know, obviously not condoning violence, but it's been interesting because while Mars has been in Gemini, we have seen Mars start coming into a square with Neptune, and you saw, like, I've seen all these things all over the news where people are like, oh my God, you know, on social media, I should say. You're not going to see this stuff on the news, but you're seeing like videos of like all of these, you know, Hell's Angels coming in from all over the country, going into like Colorado to like go and help clean up the community. I saw another post that was saying that there's like members from Yakuza in Japan that are like talking about going and, you know, helping clean up communities in the United States and stuff. I mean, guys, you have literal gang members getting on planes and motorcycles and coming to some of the parts of the country that are struggling with crime, people who are being attacked, people whose homes are being invaded, people who are being robbed in broad daylight. You're having criminals show up and do this, essentially. God bless them. Because, you know, who identify as being part of gangs, they're coming in and they're doing this because of failed leadership. This is the epitome of what Mars square Saturn has been. This is now the epitome of Mars square Neptune. That's like, there's nobody there that's helping. We got to do something. And this is why I told you guys Jupiter and Gemini would be public coming together, communities coming together, people traveling, people spreading the word, and talking about this stuff. And I understand not everybody agrees with some of this stuff. That's the other thing, is that Jupiter and Gemini, everybody's going to have their own philosophy and their own belief system and their own perception on what they're reading and what they're hearing. And a lot of that's going to be about where you get your media. A lot of that's also going to be your own personal kind of philosophies. But these things are happening. And it's like so crazy to see the astrology playing out. So, you know, where the communities have been more the Gemini energy. Now we have got Mars, which represents the individual, going into Cancer. And now it's going to start squaring stuff and then opposing Pluto. And that's going to be people being like, hell no, get off my property. You know, like literally, you're going to start seeing this. Which is interesting. Very kind of like Clint Eastwood, you know, like get off my lawn. That's kind of how it reminds me of, at least. And I think that this is going to be a time where, unfortunately, you know, it's the astrology. I'm not talking so much about the election, but it's literally correlating like directly with the beginning of November. If you look at Mars starts opposing Pluto by degree, that starts happening on November 1st. It looks like it's going to perfect on the 3rd of November. The election is going to be the 4th. So on the 3rd, it's when it perfects. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here. And that's going to be at 46. So that's going to be in the morning of November 3rd, the day before the election. That does not, and I said this in my webinar for the election, I said I don't see peace. I see, unfortunately, civil unrest. That's what I'm going to call it. I think that there is going to be conflict. I think there's going to be situations where, yeah, there's going to be violence, and, you know, people are going to be really smart to just have a plan, especially if you live in some of like the inner cities or places that are not more rural. I mean, police in uniform is Pluto and Capricorn, and police brutality. We saw the protests, Black Lives Matter stuff, all kinds of stuff, all happened because of planets at the late degrees of Capricorn. So when we start seeing that, this is going to be talking about, you know, authority and those in uniform or high positions of power who are at odds with the people. And when this happens, the moon is the dispositor, right? And the moon's going to be conjunct Mercury. This is right on the United States ascendant, by the way. If you use the Sibley chart, the Mercury, Moon, Venus, all coming into a square with Saturn. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a colorful time. Me personally, not crazy about the idea of like really, you know, doing anything potentially dangerous with Mars in opposition to Pluto, because, you know, that 29 degrees is a critical turning point. And the moon really tells us everything we need to know. So with that moon conjunct Mercury, people are going to want to be speaking, sharing. It's going to be also very much about the court system. Could be the Supreme Court, laws, judges, and the squares to Saturn, where it's going to be about kind of tapping into that Sagittarius rising in the United States chart, being like, you know, what about freedom? You know, what about the rule of law? And, I mean, we're seeing crazy stuff. I mean, sorry, this is my opinion now, but saw an article the other day that was like from the New York Times being like, oh, is the Constitution like dangerous? Like, this is like literally what we've come to now. And when you start seeing stuff like that, where they're now suggesting that we should be reevaluating whether or not the United States, which happens to be one of the last free countries in the world right now, if you look at what's going on with freedom of speech in, you know, Brazil, Australia, the UK, a lot of other places. No, I don't really think it's a good time to be reevaluating whether or not the Constitution is dangerous. I think that that statements like that, especially coming out of what used to be reputable mainstream, you know, like news, is just, quite frankly, that's dangerous. I don't know. You may or may not agree with me, but I think there's going to be a lot of talk about some of this stuff personally. And the fact that it's happening like right before the election is just like madness. So we'll have this opposition, and then what's going to happen is then Mars is going to go into Leo. This will happen on the 4th of November, and it will continue until the beginning of December to move through 6 degrees. And if you go by whole sign chart, that's going to be conjunct Trump's ascendant. Technically, the whole retrograde will actually be in his 12th house. It will mostly be in his 12th house, and then it will retrograde over his natal Saturn and Venus in the 11th house, which I do think that will be, if he is jailed, a return in some capacity. And this isn't me politicking, it's just his astrology. If Mars retrogrades over his Venus and his Saturn, I think it will be about returning to some position of support within government. If you look at RFK's chart by his Placidus, Mars will retrograde directly over his ascendant in opposition to Pluto. So he is certainly in a very potentially dangerous transit with that transit. And I talk about all this stuff in my webinar, so if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. But this Mars retrograde has huge implications. It also simultaneously will be squaring and doing a bunch of stuff to Biden's chart as well. So, you know, all of the potential people involved right now, and, you know, Kamala's gonna start getting or feeling the effects of the eclipses that are also coming at her 10th house. So, yeah, there's a lot kind of happening here, and I feel like this is only Act 1. So just take into consideration where Cancer is in your chart. Know that there is going to be a reworking period that's pretty much going to be happening anytime after October the 4th, and that's when we go into shadow. And if that happens, don't worry about it, because, you know, what we'll see at the beginning of January when Mars turns retrograde is it will trine Neptune again, it will trine Saturn again. You know, you will have the opportunity to go back and rework things. Sometimes people, you know, are better off waiting until the retrograde period for that to happen, and then you can go through and you can kind of work on things. Just know that there is going to be something that's going to slow down. Anyway, we'll talk about this more, obviously, as we get closer to the retrograde itself. Just some final closing thoughts on this. Know that the moon is going to be the dispositor of this transit. So we do need to look at the lunar transits every day a little bit more closely. If you guys haven't seen my astro weather, I do a week ahead every week. So it's definitely a good time to kind of watch over the next 6 weeks so you can see where there's going to be good days, where there's stuff going on with the moon. Periods of the time when the moon is in Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are going to be particularly interesting while we're in this period, because the moon is going to be either coming into conjunction with Saturn. It's going to be conjuncting Mars in Cancer, where we're more prone to having emotional outbursts. It's going to move through Scorpio, where we're going to see some water trines. So even though moon in Scorpio is quite debilitated and often can be a little intense, I actually think the moon in Scorpio period is going to be really great for like emotional clearing and being able to kind of get better in touch with our emotions. So even something as simple as tracking the moon during these periods can be very helpful for us. Obviously, the Mars retrograde is a big deal. And, you know, Mars goes retrograde roughly, I think it's like every 26 months or so. And the retrograde only lasts about 58 to about 81 days, depending on the cycle. But nevertheless, you know, I will tell you guys that that's a long time to have Mars in its fall. That's a long time to have Mars in, you know, some particularly precarious oppositions to Pluto. We'll actually see Mars oppose Pluto in Capricorn, and then it'll come back and it'll oppose in Aquarius when it goes into Leo. Very different energy. So something is being activated or initiated that is going to have some effects that are going to lead clear into the spring of 2025. Like I said, moves, home renovations, you know, start thinking about home security, be mindful of potential downturns in the housing market and issues with home loans and maybe even mortgages. Obviously, you know, the trine to Saturn, it can be about a limitation to Mars. So limitations with boundaries or borders of some kind, potentially even isolation. When we see those trines to Neptune, you know, this is about transmuting negative emotions, cooling off, meditating, learning to be compassionate and not angry. So reevaluate your actions and your desires. When you get, you know, frustrated, try to be patient. Watch out for internalized energy because it can really pop. Know that with some of the aspects of a retrograde, there is a lot of karmic things that happen. So within our home life, our family, especially with trines to Saturn, which is about karma. And I also feel like this is going to be a good time for a reassessment. You know, even though we're not in the retrograde yet, we're reassessing the Cancer area of our chart. And we're really growing emotionally. And we're really kind of tapping into, I think, a call to do some inner work, especially with some trines to Saturn and Neptune. All right. Okay. So let me take you through the 12 rising signs now. I'm just going to quickly show you where Mars will be going. As a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer. I practice Western astrology. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. And for the purpose of being able to show this to you guys today, I am going to do that in whole sign charts. All right, so let's take a look here. And I probably just, maybe I'll just like leave it on the Mars-Pluto opposition so you guys can kind of see that, even though it's not coming for a little bit. All right, so I'm going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. Perfect, there we go. All right, Aries, what's going on? Your planetary ruler is changing signs, all right? So this is important because you are Mars. Mars will be starting, obviously, to move into Cancer here in just like the next day or so. So that means that for the next 6 weeks, there is a lot more action revolving around your home, your private life, your living situation, your family. So you might be turning your focus inwards towards these things, possibly stirring up emotional, protective kind of instincts that can be coming up as well. You know, there can be renovations, changes at home, or on a deeper emotional level, you're connecting more with home and family matters. And this is also a really good time to be kind of nurturing your roots, perhaps by, you know, engaging in home improvement projects or spending time with home time with your family, and making some decisions revolving around where you're living, you know, if you're moving, yeah, taking some action when it comes to your home space. Now, keep in mind that eventually, right, at the end of this particular transit, you are going to be seeing, because this is Act 1, Mars will oppose Pluto. And that makes me feel like there's going to be something revolving around where you're living being impacted by your career, or what actions you're taking at home is being impacted because of a parent, or a change with your job, or a change with your career. Something like that. So it is possible, somewhere around beginning of December, through the spring of next year, you move, you go back home, you relocate, you decide, you know what, I'm not going to renovate the kitchen. I'm going to, change direction with what's going on with my home and my family. Something like that can happen, and it'll have a big impact on your reputation, who you are out in the world, even your career. Okay? Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing Mars entering into the sign of Cancer, and it's going to be there for the next couple weeks. Obviously, Mars in your chart deals with your 12th house of your subconscious self, the things that you think about, what goes on behind the scenes, your private life, self-undoing, and rest and relaxation. And it's also connecting to your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So with Mars entering into your 3rd house, I think this is really putting an emphasis on communication and the mind. Anything that is like more about, contracts, cars, siblings, conversations that have been on your mind that you've maybe been afraid to have, or things you've been afraid to talk about, changes revolving around moving. It could also be about learning something new and your relationship to the community. The connection to your 7th house too does tell me that there is something that's kind of heating up revolving around communication and conversations with a partner or a spouse, or it could be a therapist, or with your clients, taking action and maybe kind of like building a website or creating some kind of media or something to kind of give to your audience. That could be another action that's kind of taking place. With Mars in opposition to Pluto, you've got both of your 7th house rulers in opposition to each other. And it tells me that there can be some challenges revolving around traveling, education, or legal matters where there could be some delays, right? So you might get to the end of the year and then realize actually travel's being delayed, or going back to school is being delayed, or potentially there could be some legal stuff that's kind of coming up where you're needing to kind of consult with somebody because of that opposition. Obviously, this is also right before Pluto goes back into your 10th house of career, and right before Mars goes into your 4th house of home. So it might mean that, you need to wrap up something involving communication, education, learning before you, become more heavily focused on what's going on with your home or your career. Okay? Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys will be experiencing Mars entering Cancer in your natal 2nd house. And for you guys, Mars is connected to your 11th house of friends and goals and your 6th house of health, habits, and routine. Mars will enter into your 2nd house. So it's going to be really affecting financial matters or personal values in some way. It can lead to increased spending, okay, or increased focus on what you own. This could also mean that you're cutting something out of your diet, or you're cutting something out of your habits. So if you're used to like eating something at home, you might say, I'm not buying this anymore. You might be kind of getting rid of old habits or things maybe that you have been doing for some time that's been hard to kind of change because Mars's connection to your 6th house. You can be spending more money on health, wellness related things. You may also be spending more money in regards to like social related stuff as well. So parties, gatherings, get-togethers, stuff like that. Mars will obviously oppose Pluto. And so the 2nd house is the money you spend, the things that you own, what you possess. And the 8th house is like the bank's money, what you owe on your credit card. It's about taxes. It's also about loans. It can also be about your partner's money. So there can be some financial stuff that can come up right towards the tail end of this transit before we see the retrograde where, there's a lot of spending, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm trying to get out of debt. I'm trying to pay something off. Or, maybe you're trying to acquire something. And so it's requiring you to make some changes to maybe your joint finances. Or maybe, there is some back and forth revolving around money that's owed to you. So be mindful that it it can get kind of sticky in the financial department. There may be a push to secure your financial future by making purchases, and this is about evaluating your financial health and considering investments, but also be mindful of impulsive buying, okay? Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's going on, Cancer? Mars is going into your sign. You guys are going to kind of put your armor on. So this is going to be an interesting transit for you guys because Mars rules your 10th house of career and reputation. This is kind of like where you're really demanding more for yourself. You're standing up for yourself more. Maybe you're a little bolder and more assertive when it comes to your professional goals. It's also connected to your 5th house, which deals with self-expression, romance, creativity, children, taking chances, and dating. So Mars in your 1st house, first of all, Mars does well in the 1st house because it's like what you do first thing in the morning. So I would say starting your day off with exercise, sex. It could also be starting your day off with hot bath or shower, anything that's going to be about really working with that energy. Maybe you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm gonna meditate, or I'm gonna work out for 20 minutes or get on the treadmill for whatever, and it's also about like mantras and like manifestation. So it's going to be about being like, I'm repeating this phrase that is like my mantra of I am worthy, I am capable, I am strong, I am good enough. Something like that that's going to be helping you kind of get into that flow, I think can be really helpful. Yeah, you can be moody, you can be combative, there can be some conflict, there can be a sense of you getting your feelings hurt throughout this transit. That is very possible. But if you are putting this energy to work, it's not going to use you that way. What you want to watch for is when you start seeing squares to the nodes, because it's going to be about whether or not you're standing up for yourself in regards to work or being more assertive. You might feel like you need to stand up to a boss or somebody in a professional setting, or really put yourself out there to promote yourself more. You're also going to want to watch when this is squaring stuff in the 4th house, because that can have major implications to your home or your living situation. Somehow like work and home are kind of affecting each other in some way. And then finally, this is going to finalize with an opposition to Pluto. So if you notice, like this will happen during like Libra season. You've got a lot of, Aries stuff up here. There's an opposition to Pluto. It's just kind of from all angles for the cardinal signs. Actually for everybody, but really for the cardinal signs. And I feel like this is really about you learning how to stand up to yourself. And whether this is like a long-standing issue you've had with a kid, or a long-standing issue you've had with a relationship, or maybe like you've had a hard time like cutting somebody off who's been cruel or kind of mean, toxic, it could be a client, can be a business relationship, can be a spouse or a partner. This is where you start to kind of realize like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, or this isn't working for me. And it can definitely create a lot of static between you and another person. So yes, it will energize you, but it also might make you feel a little bit more defensive or protective. And it could be of yourself or your children. And I think that this is going to be about personal transformation, increased visibility, starting new projects through work. And embracing this energy for personal growth, but avoiding unnecessary conflicts and channeling your energy into self-improvement matters. Okay? Good luck, Cancer. Let me know what you end up doing with this transit. All right, so we've got Leo and Leo rising. You will be experiencing Mars entering into the sign of Cancer in your 12th house. Well, the 12th house is about like your spiritual self. It's what's behind the scenes. This is kind of your private area. This can also be healing centers. It could be, retreats. It could be about spiritual exploration. It could be about hospitals and mental health care as well. So the inner transformation or hidden matters generally come to light with this Mars transit in your 12th house, and it can involve your health or psychological insights. Now, Mars rules the 9th house, so this can be about like the relationship maybe that you have with your faith or your belief system. This can also be about like going back to school or traveling to a foreign land that you've been to before. And Mars also is connected to your 4th house of home and family. So, the retrograde here is about you kind of asking yourself like, You know, do I see myself relocating? Do I want to move? Do I see myself getting married? Do I want to go back to school? You know, do I need some time to rest and recuperate and like overcome or heal from something? Obviously Pluto's, you know, in your sixth house. So this can be about job changes, health changes, habit changes, that kind of stuff. So, you know, eventually Mars will come into the late degrees of Cancer and it will oppose Pluto. And this tells me that this can be about where you're feeling burnt out and you're overworking and like you need to rest more. All right. So this is as we get into the end of October. What's going to happen is you will see with the retrograde, you know, Mars will cross into your ascendant, Pluto will go into your seventh house, and it's going to definitely bring up some intense interactions between you and relationships to friends or maybe a partner. Maybe it will be highlighting and showing you like where you're like, I need to take a step back and focus on me. And it could be time away from a friendship or relationship of some kind. That is possible for some people. Pluto in the seventh house means other people are going through some kind of crisis and they're going through some period of needing to evolve and change. And so the Mars retrograde on your ascendant, I could anticipate as being like for some of you guys going, yeah, I need time, you know, to be away from you or to take space to reflect, you know, while you go through your change. But also it could mean that you're healing something, you know, you're going to a retreat, you're traveling, you know, and there is something that you're working through on a personal level before you decide whether or not you're really able to kind of join another person. So pretty complex with Pluto being there. I'll do a video where I'm going to talk more about that, so don't worry. But this is where you start to kind of work some of that stuff out before these, I think, conversations become a little bit more visible as we're getting into November and December of this year, okay? So yeah, might delve into personal issues or face health challenges that can happen. You know, you just want to focus on healing, whether that's physical or emotional, and consider practices like meditation and therapy while Mars is going through the 12th house. I think like saunas, spas, private spas, massage, you know, doing some kind of dance or flexibility behind the scenes, getting adequate rest. These are things you're going to want to do with this transit, okay? Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You'll be experiencing Mars transiting through the sign of Cancer in your natal 11th house. Mars is connected to your 8th house of change, transformation, joint resources, and your 3rd house of communication, the mind, short distance trips, and siblings. So Mars going through the 11th house is generally about, you know, 6 weeks or so. There just being a lot more action in your social circle. Social interactions or group activities become a little bit more active. It can be a little bit more competitive with friends as well. Spending time at friends' houses or with like friends' families. That could be another theme with Mars and Cancer. There could be some changes going on with your relationship to some friends, especially in how you're communicating with them, or they could be undergoing some changes like having kids or changes in their romantic relationships, and that could be impacting your communication and connection with them. You know, I predict that friendships might undergo a test, or new friendships could, you know, basically be showing up into your life. I think this is also going to be about engaging in teamwork or activities with groups of people where you maintain your independence and, you know, you're avoiding getting dragged into conflict. So this could mean like maybe you decide that, you know, you want to start incentivizing people at work and kind of, you know, collaborating and working with people, but like everybody has their own individual kind of task, you know, in order to bring stuff together. This could also mean that there are like reunions and reconnections with people that can be coming through here as well. Short distance trips, traveling to see friends. If you're going back home to visit family, you know, you might see friends, or vice versa. You might see people coming into town. And it's going to be interesting because there's going to be a number of transits where there will be trines to your 7th house of relationships. So it's like if you have a change in a relationship, you might be spending more time with friends. Equally, it can be a time where you're introducing people to your friends, or you go to a social event and then you meet someone, you know. So these things can kind of happen because they're kind of all playing off of each other. But I feel like for you, this is also a time to really focus on what your goals are and what you're hoping to achieve, and like aligning yourself or networking with the right people to be able to make these things possible. Now, eventually it's going to start to oppose Pluto in the 5th house. And I think this is going to be bringing up where you're like, okay, well, I'm collaborating and I'm with a group of people, or I'm working with others, or I'm happy for what's going on with my friends, but what about me? When does it happen for me? You know, Pluto in the 5th house can be like, when am I going to find love? Or when am I going to have a successful, self-employed kind of business? When am I gonna, have a kid or whatever? These things can be kind of coming up, and it can be kind of triggering some stuff for you where you're having to learn to communicate and kind of express what your goals are, or, your own individual needs, as opposed to just what's going on with other people, Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you, Virgo. All right, so we've got Libra and Libra rising. You're going to be experiencing Mars's ingress into Cancer. All right, it's going to go through your 10th house, Libra, and this is an angular house for all of the cardinal signs, so it's definitely going to be a little louder for you than some of the other signs. So Mars, first of all, Mars does well in the 10th house. Like it's almost like similar to like Mars in Capricorn. So Mars going into the 10th house does put an emphasis on your career ambitions really peaking, but it can also bring like over competitiveness in the workspace. It can bring overworking. Sometimes there can be some aggression that can be going on with bosses or people who you work with. Mars rules your 2nd house of money and your 7th house of relationships and partners. So there can be more conflict and squabbles with people at work about sales, about, about salaries. Like you want to be careful when you're like wanting to ask, your boss for a raise here, or you're wanting to have a change in your status. You're going to want to do it when there are some trines to Saturn, maybe. Not when you're seeing some squares to the north and south node. You don't want to rush when Mars is in your 10th house. You want to take your time, especially because Libra and Scorpio risings, especially, you guys are going to have retrogrades in your 10th house. So a lot of Libra and Scorpio rising signs are going to change careers, or they may take like a bit of like a hiatus from work, or they may kind of redirect, what they're wanting to do with their life in the long term. So it will obviously start in Cancer for you, Libra. And it's going to be 10 signs away from you. So I think about how it's going to be scoring all of your placements in your 1st house. And you're having an eclipse in your 1st house and in your 6th house. So like a lot of like Libras and Libra risings, I think are possibly running the risk of like overworking and doing too much. To the point where you could be seeing some like health related issues. And the Mars retrograde certainly could have you scale back from work if you've been doing too much, or you're not feeling as emotionally connected to what you're doing, or maybe, you're making money slows down in some way. Some of you guys might say, well, I'm taking time off, or I'm working part-time. That can happen as well, as Mars is connected to your 2nd house. Anyway, for you guys, career ambitions will peak. Watch for challenges at work. Yes, career advancements can happen. There can be significant changes to your professional life. This is about pushing forward with your career goals, but being diplomatic and handling any disputes, the best way you can. 7th and 10th house is a lot of visibility, and Mars rules your 7th. So there can definitely be public feuds and some drama that can kind of go on that becomes very visible. So Libra, be mindful of that if you're wanting to kind of keep like a lower kind of profile, because if you're having some kind of squabble with a client or with your spouse or something with somebody at work, it's going to become very visible. So you just want to be cautious about that. Okay. Changing jobs, looking for jobs, trying to kind of move up in your career. All of these things can definitely happen, especially when you see like Mars trine Saturn. I think for some of you guys, because Mars will start to oppose Pluto, it's not necessarily going to be about changes with your job. Mars rules your 7th house. A lot of Libra and Libra risings are like on the brink of really big relationship changes. And for some of you guys that are single, it can mean that, the Mars retrograde is going to bring a change to your status, and that it can be, okay, I was single, now I'm in a relationship. Some of you guys, the Mars retrograde is going to be, the foreshadowing of what will eventually be Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house next spring, and eclipses and retrogrades there. And a lot of unhappy Libra risings are going to be leaving relationships or separating or getting divorced. And the Mars retrograde will be about a change in their status. And it's going to be about the fact that they may say, I'm going through a separation or a breakup. I can't work right now, or we're having to separate the business that, you may own with a partner. And the opposition to Pluto means that it's also going to be about changes going on in the home front and moving. So it doesn't always have to be that grim for everybody, but I could definitely see that happening for some. or some taking jobs that are going to be in other locations that would allow them to move. So the opposition of Pluto would be like, okay, I'm taking a job in another city, I'm moving, so I have to kind of take time to kind of reorganize and kind of figure out how that move is going to go. So I'd be curious to hear from some of my Libra risings how this is kind of playing out for you guys. If you're changing directions with your career completely, or if there's just a sense of taking a hiatus or rethinking where you want to go, right? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys are going to see your chart ruler, Mars, go into Cancer. So it will be going into your 9th house. All right. So it's moving through a fellow sister water sign. Scorpio trines to Saturn and Neptune in your 5th house is very creative, very romantic, great for self-expression. And then the trines to your personal Scorpio placements or planets moving through Scorpio is really good. So you're going to experience some water trines, which I think is going to be really great. The 9th house is about the higher mind. So it can be about college. It could be about education. It could be about law. It could be about foreign travel, mentorships, anything revolving around training, certification, foreign lands. So Mars going through this house, it means that you're like, okay, I'm going on some long distance trips, or maybe there's a further away relocation, or I'm, traveling further away to visit family. Mars is also connected to your 6th house of habits, health, and routine, as well as pets. So there can be some things that can come up where you're having to kind of be cautious in how you're navigating your schedule or your health or your work, to be able to make the time to go and take a course or do some kind of training, or, be able to initiate, some kind of trip, or making time to study something or publish a book or teach something. It looks like you're going to have to take action, and kind of go, okay, what can I personally do, or how can I better tend to my health, or how can I, get some support maybe from other people to walk the dog, or, do the extra work for me so I can have the time to do what I need to be able to do these things. And so for some people, the 6th house is like the help. So it might mean that you're like, yeah, I'm now at a point where I have to hire staff, so I can't do everything, or I'm never going to take a vacation. Something like that can kind of happen. What's tricky is that, Mars will start coming into an opposition with Pluto, which is your other ruler. So as a Scorpio and a Scorpio rising, yes, the effects is going to be travel, education, legal matters, could see increased activity, but also conflict. I do think there's opportunities for travel that might arise, maybe with some challenges or some changes to your travel plans. Same thing with education. This is about embracing new experiences, but being prepared for unexpected hurdles. Legal advice might be beneficial for some of you guys. 9th house can be about a lawyer. It can also be about judges. And when Mars starts coming into an opposition with Pluto, for some Scorpio and Scorpio risings, this could be about some really intense philosophical debates that you have with people, some legal issues that you have pertaining to a vehicle, or like a move or movement, leases, issues with neighbors that can come up. What I will tell you is Mars is going to go into your 10th house, and then when it opposes the second time around, and then it's going to be opposing Pluto in the 4th. So that's going to represent, for a lot of Scorpio risings through the retrograde, you're slowing down, or there's some change in direction going on with your career or your status. Why? Leo. Some of you guys are going to go, well, I'm changing jobs because I'm launching my own business, or I have a hobby or something that I really love doing more. Some of you guys are going to be like, oh, I'm becoming parents, and that's impacting work. That's possible here too. But it's going to be much harder for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, unfortunately, because you got both of your chart rulers that are kind of in opposition to each other. And when it goes into the fixed signs, it's going to be squaring the early degree Scorpio placements. So that, 0 to about 7 degrees are really going to be feeling that, I think, pretty strongly. Right now, I think the Mars transit is like, look, if there's somewhere you've always wanted to travel to, it's about making the trip. If there's, if you've always wanted to go back to school or finish your degree, or if you've always wanted to write a book or whatever, you can use this extended period of Mars in this house to say, okay, I'm going to do these things, or I'm going to teach this class, or I'm going to kind of travel to this place. It's just about being smart and how you're navigating and working with your schedule to make the time. Hopefully that's helpful, Scorpio. You've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars going through the 8th house in the sign of Cancer. A little indifferent on this one because, you know, Mars actually does pretty well in the 8th house because it has a traditional kind of association with that house. But this could be a little bit more challenging for my Geminis and my Sagittarius financially. So, you know, the 8th house is kind of tied to, obviously, joint finances, value systems, banks, loans, anything revolving around mortgages. And, you know, I think that this transit is going to impact you potentially by leading to a significant change in how you view money and possessions or how you view your debt. Mars is the 12th house lord, okay, which is about endings, completions, conclusions, likely things that we're afraid of dealing with. And the 5th house, which is about creativity, gambling, taking chances, risks, children. So when Mars is in the 8th house, the positive is that we feel more, I think, capable of creating a change. We feel a little bit more also kind of like open when it comes to like sensuality and like intimacy and physical connection with other people. However, you know, gambling can get us into trouble. We can also get into some challenges with spending too much on extracurricular stuff and having fun or spending a bunch of money on kids. That can also get us into some trouble. And Mars does represent self-undoing. So there can be some stuff that's coming up with the Mars transit in the 8th house where we're like, oh, I'm afraid of changing my home, or I'm afraid of, you know, losing a parent, or I'm afraid of looking at my bank statement, or, you know, paying my taxes. You know, I'm afraid to, you know, talk to my partner about their spending because 8th house can be about how, you know, partners are spending. And then you've got Mars opposing Pluto at the end of the transit, several times, but really at the end of the transit. And this is going to be about the power and control that you have over your money and your resources, and whether or not there is some conflict that you're having maybe with a lover, a child, you know, a romantic partner about your spending habits. Like there could literally be conflict over this stuff. I would be really careful with investing, especially with like Mars in opposition to Pluto, and Mars will go retrograde. So there could be something that you think is going to go one way and it goes another way. And, you know, secret transactions, dealing with debt, and also like inheritance related things can kind of come up with this as well, where, you know, the Mars retrograde could quite literally be bringing money to you from another person. And may not be something you see coming, and it can have like a big influence on like how you tackle your debt or some kind of home funding situation. Borrowing and lending generally kind of comes up with the 2nd and the 8th house. So for you, Sag, just watch for financial gains or losses, a reevaluation of what's important. Be very careful with your finances and consider long-term benefits over short-term goals. That's my advice for you. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. Mars will be spending some time in your 7th house in Cancer, your opposite sign. So for you, my Capricorns, this is going to be an interesting transit. You're going to have, you know, a number of weeks where there is something heating up in regards to relationships, partnerships, and your marketplace. If you sell services or if you've got products, there's a lot happening here where there's action going on with relationships with other people. Mars represents your home, family, home living situation. It could be your roommates, could be your past. And it's also connected to friends, goals, and others. So if you live with friends, if you are thinking about buying a house with friends, moving in with people, if you are wanting your own space and you're dealing with some tension or stress within a relationship and trying to have that own defined space, that can be coming up here as well. Because Mars is your goals with the 11th house. And North Node in Aries for a lot of Capricorn and Capricorn risings are like, I want my own place. I want to have my own space. For some of you guys, this is your first apartment. For some of you guys, you're buying your first house. Some of you guys are changing relationships and you're like, that's it, I'm getting my own place. And this is the very first time in a long while that you've had your own defined like room or, you know, private space. Some of you guys are going back home to be a family. It really depends. But somehow through changes or redirections eventually in your relationships, that will have an impact in your home and your living situation. Okay, that's one thing I can tell you for sure. So Mars, what's going to happen here is if you're single, Mars in your 7th house, it can bring people in. There could be house parties, gatherings, family who's trying to set you up with people. There could be more opportunity to spend time with family, to have, friends that are throwing dinner parties, or for you to have dinner parties and invite people over, right? That can be fun. What's challenging is the 7th house is about kind of airing stuff out. So if there's some beef that you have with a family member or a roommate, or a partner, it can come out. Mars eventually, as it goes through Cancer, even though it is going to make some nice aspects to Saturn where there can be communications and conversations, maybe it's, you're talking to a neighbor about a situation involving your home or your property. Maybe you're talking to a sibling about something going on with your home and your family. Maybe you're talking to your partner about moving. That's how I kind of see the Mars trine Saturn aspects. But once it starts coming into an opposition with Pluto, there's a bit of a standoff and a power struggle where you can be reluctant or unwilling to change. And you're kind of like, no, I don't want to change, or I don't want to move, or I don't want what you want, and there could be a little bit of like a back and forth between you and another person. And eventually, Mars will retrograde in your 7th house where there can be some karmic changes happening in relationships. Now, for some of you guys, this is about just relationships in general with family or with others. Especially partnerships, they can become more intense, more passionate, or confrontational, depending on how you use the energy. There can be a deepening of relationships or significant conflicts that need resolution. And this can be about addressing relationship issues head on, aiming for balance and understanding. So that's definitely the things that I would kind of pay attention to the most. And don't be reluctant to make change. I think with Pluto at 29, you're going to be reluctant to make change, and other people are going to be like, well, you have to change. And you're like, nope, I'm not doing that. And that can be good or bad. It just depends on your personal placements. I will tell you that like next year, Jupiter is going to go into your 7th house. So it is going to be better for relationships and marriage, and it is going to trine Saturn. But this may be like that final test in a relationship that's like, okay, if you're in a relationship that's been having problems and it's not working, there could be something that breaks off only for something better to come in. But this could also mean that you break up with your therapist, you change therapists, or, you finally tell your roommate, that's it, I'm moving out, I don't want to live here anymore. Or, if you've been having maybe some beef or some issues going on with a, family relative, you finally kind of squash it. So it's going to be different for everybody. I'm curious, Capricorn, how this is manifesting for you guys and how changes in relationships are impacting your emotions or your home. You'll have to let me know. And we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys will be experiencing Mars transiting through the sign of Cancer. It will be in your 6th house of health, daily routine habits, healing, bravery, pets, your work. Mars likes being in this house. So I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a little bit more tricky when Mars is in Leo opposing Pluto and Aquarius. Mars is the ruler of your 3rd house of communication, kind of your everyday routines. And this is also about learning, vehicles, writing. It can be about siblings or neighbors. And it's also connected to your 10th house of career and reputation. So this to me reads as making more time to really go over the details when it comes to what you're writing, when it comes to content you're putting on the internet, when it comes to business connected to social media, when it comes to health and habits, and making more time for walking, for breathwork exercises, for fixing or taking care of things within the home maybe. Getting on top of your health and your habits. I mean, great. Mars in the 6th house is great for that. Literally, it could be about working out from home. It could be about getting a bike, going for walks, walking the dog. Maybe it's about doing a little bit more remote work from home, and really ironing out and going over, things that are contractual in conversations and in business as well. Obviously, yes, at some point, Mars will go into Leo. It'll retrograde back into your 6th house. And so I think this could be about like needing to clear out any relationship issues, kind of same as Cancer. It could also be that there are some relationship issues coming up with a child of yours or a younger person or a romantic partner. And airing that out happens when Mars is in the 6th. I think that the fact that You're going to see some trines between Mars and Saturn. Tells me that it's more about changes in your health that can impact your diet, what you're eating, even your teeth, because you'll see some trines to Saturn in your second, or changes with your face. So there can be some like health habits or routines that you're doing at home that can have like a positive impact on that. And I think it's changes with your food, and how changes either with fitness or how you're eating has an impact on your mental health in a positive way. Can healing take longer when it retrogrades? Yeah, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think for right now, I would just be more focused on, okay, you know, do I need to find a new office space? Do I need to be organizing things better? Do I, you know, need to be focusing on my habits, organization, and having systems within the home? And, you know, being able to kind of communicate efficiently what your schedule and your routine is at home, and maybe needing to talk to family members about it. You know, I'd go and get a calendar or something that you can put in like a space where everybody's going to be checked in so they know what everybody's doing on what days, especially because there can be some changes that are kind of happening throughout the next couple of weeks with some of the shadow coming in. And some of you guys are going to be like, well, we're having a change, you know, going on at home, or we're having a change with, you know, travel plans or whatever. And you're going to have to communicate that with other people kind of within the home space or within the family. But great time to get serious, I think, especially if you guys want to go back to the gym, if you want to be working on your emotional health, if you're wanting to start doing some like laps and stuff in a pool. This can be really, really wonderful for you in terms of committing to some of your health goals. Okay. And also creating the time for the work that you want to do. Mars is connected to your 10th house. So that means you might have to go and change staff, change location. You might have to change something about your daily habits and routine so you can kind of embrace and really kind of welcome some of the bigger changes that are going to be coming, especially with Pluto, which will eventually be in opposition to Mars. That's going to be more relational for you. And how you're navigating either dating or managing your kids in your relationship. But right now, I think if you have a routine to fall back on, it's going to help you navigate some of those potential changes that could be coming. Okay. Good luck, Aquarius. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing Mars transiting through the sign of Cancer. It will be going through a fellow sister water sign, and it will be in your 5th house. I like this transit, and I feel like if you're gonna have the retrograde anywhere, this is probably one of the better places to have it, I think, at least in my opinion. You know, Mars is the ruler of your 2nd house of money, income, and self-esteem, and it is also connected to the 9th house of education, travel, philosophy, and kind of just like the bigger picture of life, right? So it's kind of like, well, do you think it's worth investing in something because it's beautiful or you love it or it's fun? You know, is it worth buying the tickets to go somewhere? Is it worth getting, you know, the workshop tickets for something you want to learn? Is it worth spending money on, you know, that program, that kind of stuff? I think the 5th house, when I really think about it, you know, this is about creativity, self-expression, self-employment, taking chances, children, dating, falling in love, right? And I think of like Mars being the investment that you make into hobbies that are or can be done at home. Now, for some of you, it's going to be like, I want to get involved in like interior design, or I want to start refabricating, you know, furniture and reselling it. I want to take my hobby to the next level and start a business from home, you know. I want to get my real estate license and try to get involved in selling real estate or flipping real estate or doing staging. Some of you guys are going to be wanting to do some kind of work with your children or with kids or involving kids. Maybe it's going to be about taking more action in regards to dating and relationships. It really depends. But this is a fun place, I think, to have Mars, because there can be some competitiveness, but it's also romantic and it's fun. So there might be more competitive family game nights. You know, there could be some kind of some standoffs that are happening around like Monopoly tables and stuff. But I think that this is nice because you're going to see like Mars trining Saturn. So you're going to be like, no, I know this is what I want to do. Or maybe you're a little bit more serious about your vision for what you create. Or maybe you're reworking or rethinking your dating strategy, or how you're, you know, kind of like managing your children if you have children. What is tricky is that, you know, Mars will start opposing Pluto. So if you think about this, you know, Mars is your money, it's your beliefs, You know, Pluto is going to represent somebody else's beliefs, and there can definitely be like a sense of you feeling like you're having some conflict with a friend, or there's a friend that's kind of like envious or not happy about some of the changes going on in your life. It can also mean that there is a little bit of drama in your dating life. If you're dating somebody and you're like, I don't know, are they dating somebody else? And then there could be some jealousy and some back and forth. Be careful with that. There can also be like issues with your kids having problems with other people's kids. Pluto in the 11th can be other people's kids and then being kind of like a bully. And so the impact that other people's children can be having on your children. This can also indicate where you're like, man, I've got some just like, there's some realizations that I'm having that I have some friends that are kind of like toxic. And so, you know, the eventual Mars retrograde can materialize as you being like, I'm focusing more on the things that make me happy, or I'm doing my own thing, you know, I'm kind of keeping it to myself. Obviously, an extended period of focusing on self-expression, creativity, pregnancy, dating, and romance. And so you'll see that because Mars will eventually go retrograde here. Can it mean that things slow down or there's a sense of redirectioning? Yeah, that can happen. But I think that, you know, having Mars in a house of pleasure, romance, creativity, and passion is a good thing. I also think that you will see probably a surge in creative energy or romantic energy, which can lead to like new projects, new ways of expressing yourself. This is also really great for just enjoying the heightened creativity. And, you know, I would just say be mindful that there can be a tendency to overindulge in pleasure. You know, there could be a little bit of like serial dating going on. There can be a little bit more too willing to indulge in eating and drinking here, gambling here, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think the trines to Saturn will be about moderation. I'm not really worried about it too much. I think it's just going to be about like where you're changing the way that you express yourself or look at having fun and pleasure in you know, complete polarity to like how some of your friends are doing it. You know, your friends, you know, with Pluto and Capricorn in the 11th, work hard, play hard. You have people that are like totally dedicated to their career and that's all they do. And so they may also have some kind of darker habits or, you know, ways of kind of looking at having fun. And with Mars retrograde in the 5th is like, I do want to stay home and make forts with my kids, you know, or I do want to be like knitting, or I do want to kind of have like a romantic movie night. Like I don't want to go out and like binge drink and party and, you know, do some of the things that other people are doing. And so you're going to rework or rethink something about your kind of creative expression and just how you have fun. Not a bad transit. Sometimes, right? Sometimes. And this is definitely for my Pisces risings and also for my Capricorn and my Aquarius risings, because you guys will all have the retrogrades kind of going through your either your 5th or your 7th house. Romantic partners from the past can come back. Okay, that can happen. Mars retrograde in the 5th house. You know, if you had somebody you had a little fling with, they can kind of come back in Mars retrograde in the 5th house. Somebody that you didn't anticipate you were going to kind of reconnect with, or somebody from high school can come back there. For my Capricorn and Aquarius risings, Mars retrograde in the 7th house. You know, if you guys are in a committed relationship, certainly a Mars retrograde in the 7th house is more tricky because it can undo relationships. But if you're single, it can be a time where like karmically somebody really significant comes into your life. So you have to, that's why you have to look at the aspects, right? And especially for Capricorn and Aquarius, I think the Mars retrograde trine Saturn is actually pretty fortuitous for you guys. It can indicate changes in direction with relationships that's more so aligning for you, for I think for better, not necessarily for worse. Like I had Mars retrograde in my 7th house when I reconnected with my husband, you know, after like not talking to him for 7 years. So it doesn't always have to be bad. It can actually be something that can be really good. So keep an open mind. You know, we aren't anywhere near the shadow yet. When we start getting closer to the shadow, what's going to happen is I'm going to drop my webinar probably in October. So you guys can see the full webinar with what's going to happen, and we'll talk about how this is going to play out for the 12 signs, and I'll come up with an action plan for you guys. And then we'll also kind of talk about what's going to happen with some of like the world events, because it's going to be popping off in a very big way. I hope this is helpful in giving you guys some insights into how to navigate Mars in Cancer. I'd love to hear your guys' personal messages and stories if you do have Mars in Cancer or Mars in the 4th house, or you have a story about a transit that happened there. I'm sure I have tons of them, but you know, I don't mind when Mars goes through my 4th house. It's my 4th house is Capricorn, so it's exalted there. In the last couple of years, every Mars in the 4th house has manifested as a move for me. Which was a good move. So it's just been kind of getting better and better. So I'm curious to see how this is going to manifest in opposition to all of like my Capricorn stuff. But don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will be back with a part 2 in October and some webinars. I've got lots of stuff I'm working on for you guys. I've been doing that pretty much the entire Mercury retrograde. I was just creating stuff. So working on calendars for 2025 right now and kind of putting together some webinars for some of the other big transits happening between now and the end of the year. Don't forget to check out my eclipse webinar if you guys want to see that. You can find all the links down here below, or you can head over to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. All right, so enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you guys all very soon, and watch the moodiness. All right, watch the moodiness. All right, take care. See you soon.